Good morning, class. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good night. I don't know. I am live once again from my couch in my living room. As you can tell from the necktie, it's time for class. Hopefully, this video finds you well and not going out of your mind. I'm getting close, although from the sounds of the news, we're nowhere near ever seeing each other again. You can tell my quarantine beard is coming in quite trashy, but that's all right. I don't have to leave the house, and my wife, or the woman who portrays my wife that is stuck here with me, does not seem to mind too much. So I am back. I think from a little bit of the feedback I've gotten, we're going to do this. I don't know a better way to get you the content, and since we have to get you guys learned up good and get you the credit, so we can all move on and not have to do this again next year, at least not together, I'm going to do this for a while. I got a number of lectures planned out, sketched out. I'm getting those ready to go. We're not going to make this an every single class thing because it's too much work for me, but we are going to do this with a little bit of frequency, regularity, hopefully, as much as we need to, which is probably going to be the rest of the year, but we'll see. But I'm back, and we have to go through the rest of what I guess I'm just going to call Unit 6, Section 1, the birth of sectionalism. Sectionalism intensifies. I don't know, whatever. Before we do, a few announcements. Obviously, welcome back. Happy to have you. Happy that I'm making all of you watch this because this isn't a vacation. I know that sucks to hear. Definitely doesn't feel like a vacation. I know, to me at least, this sucks worse than regular school, in my opinion. I'm doing a whole lot more work, but that's all right. I'm doing the work. Hopefully, you will too. Deal with it. Please do the work. Got to get you guys the credit. Can't see you guys again next year, except as visitors, right? Study guides from Unit 5 are going to be due next week. Let's just go ahead and say odd day classes Wednesday, even day classes Thursday. Just submit those to me. Please submit your work, all of your work. The easiest way for me would be either directly into the Dropbox for an assignment if it's already up, and if not, just to one of my email addresses, like mlamine at K12 or mlamine at BOE. I've tried to put those email addresses everywhere for you. Please put those in my inboxes. That's the easiest way for me to see it, make sure I've graded it, and gotten you all squared away. Please check your grades. On level, I've graded your projects. Check your grades, make sure that I gave you credit for it. Honors, I'm still getting through it. It's a lot of reading, and it's very slow to grade. I'm getting there. But check your grades. If you see that you are missing a grade and you think you turned it in, just turn it in again. Please don't just send me an email and yell at me. It probably fell through the cracks. It's probably my fault. I don't make a lot of mistakes. I don't want to say that too loudly because my wife is upstairs watching The Office right now. I don't want her to hear. But I do make mistakes from time to time. If you think I did, just send it to me again. The third 9 weeks is ending soon. I believe the Schoology message that went out, or the message that went out from the school said the 27th. I'll cut grades off here very, very shortly for the third 9 weeks. I do update Schoology frequently with grades, with announcements. Check the update section for that. I did make an announcement here recently that I have a new discussion board up in all the classes. If you have any problems, if you have any tips, if you come across any dead links or anything, post it there for the group so everyone knows, and hopefully we cut down on the amount of work I do, or at least the amount of redundant emails again and again. Hey, I'm having this problem. If everyone's having the same problem, we can post it there. So make sure we're checking Schoology, the updates, that discussion thread, before you email me with, hey, where do I find this thing? I probably put the directions out there. I am online Monday through Friday, pretty much nonstop from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm just sitting on my couch on my Chrome Dome, checking my emails, typing up my PowerPoints, making you web quests, making you discussion threads, grading stuff, pretty much nonstop between 9 and 3. So if you have a problem during those hours, hit me up. Schoology, mlamine at K12. If You try to send me a Schoology message after that. I probably won't get it till the next morning. If you send me an email, I might see it at night. I might respond. I might not. But that's that for announcements. So, real quick for review, just so we have it here and we refresh from whenever you watched this last. We talked about 4 topics. Same thing we're going to do today. Today's topics are a little more interconnected than last time, but the 4 topics we covered were Nat Turner's Rebellion, Martin Van Buren, old William Henry Harrison, and issues with Texas. So just real quick, Nat Turner's Rebellion, remember that is the rebellion in Southampton County, Virginia. In 1831, slave uprising, slaughters 60 whites, pretty nasty, gets put down. All of the rebels, along with 100 or so other unrelated slaves, wind up losing their lives as well. Nat Turner hanged, drawn, quartered, chopped him up, cut his head off. I've even heard stories where there were like souvenirs made from like his body parts, like skin and whatnot. Pretty nasty. But the important part there, it leads to further restrictions on slavery, right? Honors classes, you've done a really good job with your hypotheses as to why Virginia talked about getting rid of it, but actually didn't get rid of slavery. And it helps lead to further sectionalism when the North and the South interpret the rebellion and the fallout from the rebellion in very different ways. Talk about our 8th president, Martin Van Buren, and how handsome and ruggedly good looking he was, but how he had a lot of issues. Most of them came from his predecessor and friend, Andrew Jackson, most notably the Panic of 1837, that giant economic crisis where Martin Van Buren becomes known as Martin Van Ruin. Doesn't get a whole lot done. Then we moved very quickly to our 9th president, who should have been Henry Clay, was old Tippecanoe, William Henry Harrison, first Whig president, 9th overall, gives a long speech in the cold, dies of pneumonia 31 days later. And the unfortunate vice president at the time was John Henry, John Henry, should have been Henry Clay, John Tyler, 10th president, former Democrat. Now he's a former Whig when he gets kicked out. His big issue was, what are we going to do with Texas? He opts to ultimately start that process, open that can of worms with Texas. Don't worry, it will not come back to bite us in the butt. Lastly, what's up with Texas? Well, they're going independent. Remember, it was a Mexican province filled with Americans. Oh, the irony. They rebel to become an independent country. They win that independence even after massacres like at Goliad and remember the Alamo. They win their independence and ultimately asked to be annexed. Jackson says no. Van Buren says no. William Henry Harrison says nothing because he dies. And John Tyler says, hey, America, re-elect me. I brought in Texas. Does not work, but Texas independence, turning into Texas as a state, going to have far-reaching consequences today. So, piddle paddle, let's skedaddle. Here we go. James K. Polk, another president you've probably never heard of. You will not want to forget the name because he is probably the most successful one-term president we ever have. Nay, I would say he definitely is the most successful one-term president. That is by design. When he runs, he says, hey, elect me. I'm only going to run for one term. He runs in 1844 against Henry Clay. Henry Clay is back. He runs for president again, meaning he's definitely going to lose. But as you can see, a couple of important things. The really big issues in 1844 are linked. They are expansion and they are slavery, and kind of the marrying of those two positions, the expansion of slavery. Those are the two big issues. Now, Polk is pro-expansion. He runs on a platform saying, we're going to take Oregon. And if you guys remember from the maps you did a while ago, he's not just talking about what is now the state of Oregon. He's talking about the Oregon country that runs from Northern California all the way to the border of present-day Alaska. And he is telling Britain, who we share this country with, we're going to take all of it. We're going to take all of it, even if it means war. He is saying we're definitely taking Texas. We're taking all of Texas. We'll get into what that means later, even if that means war. He's also saying he's going to find a way to get us California. Of course, part of Texas or all of Texas disputed with Mexico. California, firmly owned by Mexico. Again, Polk doesn't care. He is a believer in, and the vocabulary word is here on the screen, manifest destiny. Now, this is a very important concept in the 1840s. And it is the belief that the U.S. is destined to own the continent. It is our destiny from God. Right? God has told America, you're great. You're going to bring civilization. You're going to bring democracy, capitalism, Christianity or Protestant Christianity to the continent from sea to sea. Now, how much of the continent is kind of up for debate? Is it all of North America? Is it all of North and South America? Is it just from the Atlantic Ocean to anywhere on the Pacific Ocean? Right? That is up for debate, but what's not up for debate is Polk is saying, I'm going to get it done, right? Even if it means war with Britain, with Mexico, with both, elect me, we're going to expand it. He's okay with doing it violently. He's okay with slavery expanding along with it. On the other end, you have Henry Clay, right? Your boy, my boy for sure, right? The name that I will give my son if I have one day. He's not as on the opposite end of the spectrum as Polk, right? It's not like Polk is saying, hey, elect me, we're going to expand, and if it means war, it means war, and Clay's on the other end saying, no, no, no. He's much more leery of this, though, right? He's not coming out forcefully saying, no expansion, no war, no more spread of slavery. He's saying, it might not be a great idea, but he's a compromiser, right? He doesn't want to send a message that has the South all on board and the North against him or vice versa. He likes to sit on a fence. He likes to try to keep the country together, right? Remember, his overall goal all the time is peaceful union. And he thinks that violently expanding the country and allowing slavery to expand along with it is not good for peaceful union. So he's much more leery, especially if it means the spread of slavery, especially if it means war, right? He's not a big fan of going to war, right? He tried that, right? Remember, he was a war hawk in the War of 1812. He's tried that. He knows it's not great. So he says, maybe not. Whereas Polk is out there with this slogan. He didn't actually use it at the time, but I included it anyway because it's normally attributed to him. At 54-40 or fight, meaning, hey, Britain, we're going to take all of Oregon, or we're going to fight you. Right? Hey, Mexico, we're going to take California, even if it means fighting you. But Clay does not state his positions as clearly as Polk. Polk is very clear with things like 54-40 or fight. Hey, I'm going to fulfill manifest destiny. Clay hems and haws and sits on the fence and, is more anti-slavery in the North, and then he's a little less anti-slavery or more pro-slavery in the South, and it ultimately ends up costing him, surprise, surprise, right? When he runs, you can see his looks are not holding up at this point, but he is much, much older. Here is the Democrat from Tennessee and Old Hickory, Mr. Andrew Jackson's friend, James K. Polk. When they run, it's actually very close, right? 170 to 105. It doesn't sound super close in the Electoral College, but you can see here at the bottom of the screen the percentage in the popular vote, extremely close, 49.5 to 48.1. And really what kills Clay, what cost him the entire election, is New York right here. It has 36 electoral votes. Well, as you can see here, Polk wins New York. But the reason he won New York is because a third party, an anti-slavery party, we've gotten to that point already in 1844. We're still 16, 17 years from the first shots of the Civil War, but a anti-slavery party runs in New York, and enough people vote for the anti-slavery candidate in New York that it swings the entire state. What should have been a Whig state, right? They were more anti-slavery, right? They're not super anti-slavery, but they're more anti-slavery at this time. What should have been a Whig state went Democrat. And so had New York gone Whig, Clay would have won 141 to 134. But it goes the anti-slavery vote siphons off just enough to give Polk the state and therefore the election. Poor Henry Clay is cost the election, the presidency one more time, and is going to have profound consequences, not just for the country, but for Clay personally, because once Polk gets himself elected, he is going to fulfill pretty much all of these here promises, all of the things that he says he wants to get done, he's going to get that done. And it's going to have profound effects on the country going forward and on Henry Clay personally. And that all comes to bear very quickly here. The election is in 1844, meaning Polk takes office in March of 1845. And by 1846, we are at war with Mexico. This is our first war of expansion. This is our first non-defensive war. This is, in some ways, our first imperial war. It's our first war where we kind of pick a fight with a weaker country because we think we can take some land from them. The official cause is a border dispute between Texas and Mexico. So hopefully, yeah, I have my map here for you. Texas, you can see part of what is classic border of Texas and Mexico. When Texas broke away and became independent, it was not clear to the people of Texas, to the people of Mexico, to the people of the United States, where Texas ended and where Mexico began. Texas claimed all of this disputed area, right, which is weird. It gives it like a weird Bart Simpson head or a snorkel or something. But it said its border was the Rio Grande, right, the river right here that runs into the Gulf. But Mexico said, no, 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 no. There's another river up here. That's where your border ends. So this whole area is under dispute. Now, when we annex, right, Polk is part of the driving force behind annexing, along with Tyler. When we annex, we know this. We know that the border is under dispute. But Polk is looking for an excuse to fight Mexico. He has made them an offer, which they refused. For California, we said, hey, we want to settle some border issues. We want to buy California from you. We'd like to buy maybe some other area. Right? We're asking to buy a bunch of their land. We offer them $25 million. And they say, no, California, it's always been part of New Spain or Mexico. We're not selling. So Polk provokes war pretty much on purpose. I think that's pretty clear at this point. I put a question mark in there. But at least in my opinion, it's pretty clear that Polk deliberately starts the war when he sends contingents of the U.S. Army under a general named Zachary Taylor to the disputed area. He sends them down here, right, along the Rio Grande. He knows that the Mexican army is in the area because they claim this territory, and by sending our army into disputed territory, he's hoping that some sort of violent clash takes place. And it does. There is a little battle, and Mexican troops fire on American soldiers. An American or two is killed in this disputed region, possibly inside of Mexico as well. We end up in what was definitely Mexico to provoke all this. Then Polk has his excuse. He goes to Congress and he says, hey, Mexico killed Americans on American soil. Is that true? Unclear. What Polk wanted to happen? Yeah, probably. So he goes to Congress and says, hey, I need money. We need to declare war. Now, this is going to be the first unpopular war. Now, I know we talked about the Federalists and possible secession at the Hartford Convention in the War of 1812, but that was a small group in one section of the country that was anti-war. The Mexican-American War is going to be the first war where there's large segments of the population that are anti-war and really speak out. In fact, during this time period, a young congressman from Illinois is serving his one and only term in Congress, Abraham Lincoln, and he speaks out. He famously stands in the House of Representatives and says, show me the spot on American soil where Americans were killed. Right? You can't, because this is disputed territory. This is not American soil necessarily. We might be in the wrong here, President Polk. This war, maybe we shouldn't be fighting. But Congress does go ahead and, under the guise of self-defense, goes ahead and declares war, right? The South especially is much more gung-ho, and a lot of people in the North are very leery, right? A lot of these anti-war people are saying this is just an imperialist war. This is a war for expansion. This is a war to steal land and spread slavery. The South especially, and pro-slavery forces saying, no, 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 no. We are just standing up for our national honor, kind of like we did against Britain, right? We can't allow this behavior to happen. We're not the bad guys at all. Trust us. That we will see here in a little bit. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about the battle or the war on the battlefield. I've included a map here. You guys will do a little bit more research on this war next class in the form of a web quest. It really isn't that hard, but it goes pretty well. It goes pretty well. We already have a guy named John C. Fremont who was an explorer on his way to California. We have a guy named General Kearney who is on his way, takes over Los Angeles. We very quickly defeat Mexico on the battlefield in what is now the modern Southwest and in California. We invade northern Mexico and we defeat the Mexican army there. And eventually we invade and capture Mexico City itself. It's not a super bloody war on the battlefield. The United States only loses 1,700 killed, unfortunately. And this is even more tragic twist of irony for Henry Clay, who was this close to being president, meaning this war would not have happened. His son dies in this war in northern Mexico in a battle. So not only does Henry Clay lose the presidency, he loses his own son because of the way New York swung on an anti-slavery platform. But we only lose 1,700 killed. Mexico loses 5,000 dead on the battlefield. It is a much bloodier war than that, as you can imagine, mostly due to disease. We have over 13,000 Americans are killed, which is a pretty high number, although nothing compared to what we're going to talk about in our next war, in the Civil War. But it's 2 years, 13,000. That's pretty high. And the Mexicans lose over 25,000. And there's a lot of heroes, right? This is the training ground for the Civil War. Guys like Ulysses S. Grant, Sherman, Lee, these guys that names you're going to hear a lot about in the Civil War. They make a name for themselves in the Mexican-American War. This is their training ground. They become national heroes. Our next president, Zachary Taylor, becomes a hero in this war. That's how he becomes president. So there are the heroes. There's also a lot of bad actors on the American side. There's a lot of raping, pillaging. There's a lot of pretty nasty stories that come out of Mexico by treatment of Americans. But the war is won very quickly on the battlefield. Now, we force an end to it once we capture Mexico City. And that end comes in the form of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This ends the war, obviously, because it's a treaty. It's a sweetly named treaty, right? You're not going to find many with a better name than Guadalupe Hidalgo. It gives us, we pay Mexico a couple $1 million. We get California. We get the modern Southwest. The Texas border is kind of settled. We get all of what you see in green. So all of California, Nevada, Utah, parts of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, or most of Arizona. The little purple there, we're going to buy from them. It's called the Gadsden Purchase. You don't really need to know that. We'll buy that from them later, because the next time we come and knock it and say, hey, Mexico, we'd like to buy a little chunk of land, they are much more willing to sell. And Texas is more or less settled, at least with Mexico. Now, within the United States, it's not quite settled yet, as you'll see in a later lecture. But war's over. We win. We take all this land. My question to you, right, and you're going to go back, add this to the activity sheet from last time. If you want to start over with your numbering, you can. If you want to go number one again, that's fine. My question to you is, considering how the war started, considering the fact that 13,000 Americans died, 25,000 Mexicans died, we get a ton of land, right? How should we feel about this war, right? I myself have very complex feelings, right? The last bullet point that I didn't really talk about there says, sows the seeds of the Civil War. We'll see how, right? That's a lot of the story going forward, is how does this land poison us? How does this war poison us? How should we feel about this? How do you view the war? Right? I mean, most people haven't really even heard of the Mexican-American War. If you went around even the United States today, most people don't really remember that Texas was Mexican, and they said, "Hey, too many Americans are coming here. Stop immigrating. Start assimilating." Right, all the opposite of what you hear today. How do you view this war? And is it something to be proud of? Is it something to be forgotten? Where does it fall? Right, and if you are, of Mexican heritage, or if you were of Mexican heritage, how would you view this war? Because I've been calling it the Mexican American War. In Mexico, they don't call it the Mexican American War. It has different names, and a lot of times it's like the War of American Aggression or the War of American Expansion. So they have a very different view. Is that the kind of view they should probably have? You might want to go ahead and pause, type that into your activity sheet. I'll see you on the next slide. Oh man, the Wilmot Proviso or Proviso, or I don't care how you say it. I'm not going to have to hear you say it probably, but the Wilmot Proviso. This is a doozy. Now, the last time that we had something like this, the South got their the South got very upset. I don't know the term I want to use, but the South got very upset the last time anything from the North came out that was anything like this. And here we go again. This time, instead of it being a Talmadge amendment to make sure that Missouri stays free, it's the Wilmot Proviso. With David Wilmot is a congressman from Pennsylvania. He introduces, during the Mexican-American War, there's a bill in the House of Representatives to provide $2 million and later to provide $3 million for the war. David Wilmot's obviously a Northerner, and he is anti-slavery, and he says, hey, we're going to give you the money, right? But we need to put this into the bill, right? We need to put this attached to the check that any territory we get from Mexico as part of this war cannot allow slavery, right? South, pro-slavery people, you said at the beginning of this war, this isn't about stealing territory. This isn't about expanding slavery. Well, let's prove it, right? Let's not even debate the expansion of slavery into places like what is now New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, California. Let's just put our money where our mouth is and say, hey, we'll fund the war, we'll continue the war, but no slavery can expand into these territories. Now, of course, this is going to cause a lot of problems. Now, it passes in the House because, again, the House is based off of representation and off of population. The House is based off of the House of Representatives is based off of population. The North, much more populous. Therefore, the North controls the House. And it passes it. It says, yeah, that sounds agreeable to us. We don't want to see slavery expand anyway. We pass it. In the Senate, it fails because there's a balance in the Senate. There are the same number of slave states as free states, just like before the Missouri Compromise. And the South says, no way, right? No way. The votes are along sectional lines. The northern states say, yeah, we're cool with the Wilmot Proviso. The South says, absolutely not. If we're getting new territory, slavery should be allowed to go there. If I'm a Southern slave owner, if I live in Alabama, if I live in Louisiana, if I live in Texas, I should be able to take my slaves to California. I should be able to take my slaves to New Mexico. That should be my choice. They're not people. They're my property. So it dies there. But what is important, right, once again, like with the Talmadge Amendment during the Missouri controversy, is the sectionalism, the tension that it reveals, the need in the South, or if you're a Southerner like John C. Calhoun, right? He's going to see conspiracy. He's going to start to feel more paranoid. They're going to start to say, wait a minute, we have to, for our very survival, for the survival of our way of life, we have to keep power in the Senate, at least equality. But the fear is going to become all-pervading in the South, that if the North gets enough power, they are going to kill slavery one way or another. They are out to get us, right, is what you're thinking if you're John C. Calhoun, right? You're going to see some pictures of him where he's wide-eyed and crazy looking. And he is going to help lead the charge. But a lot of people in the South, they are becoming violently paranoid, okay, about the future of slavery, the future of their way of life, right? It's not just a thing that's a part of the South. It is the South. It's the way the entire South is organized around this institution. It's where all their money is. It's even if you're a poor white, this is what you're hoping for, right? Maybe I can rent a slave first, and I can buy a slave. Then eventually my son can own multiple slaves. And this is how the entire South is organized. And so they're becoming very paranoid. Whereas to the North, they go, yeah, see, told you, a bunch of liars. You said it's not about expanding slavery. We try to get you to prove that, and all you do is prove the opposite. So the North is becoming very suspicious of the South and their designs, right? Did the South just provoke a war so that they could steal a bunch of territory? Right? Did Northern boys go off to fight and die in Mexico so we could expand slavery? So the North is becoming very wary of the South and their power. They call the slave power, right? They're getting paranoid too, right? I don't want to make it sound like it's all Southern paranoia. The North is becoming paranoid towards the South. The South is becoming paranoid against the North. So sectionalism increases, right? This instance is a major red flag going forward. The Talmadge Amendment that failed back with the Missouri Compromise, it raised people's suspicions of each other, and it got that alert level going, got us down to like DEFCON 3. But Henry Clay was able to paper that over. We get a compromise out of it. Here, no compromise is around, but a lot of suspicion, a lot of paranoia. Everyone is on edge, and everyone knows the big fight going forward is going to be this whole area down here. You can see what I was talking about with Texas. Pretty messed up looking. Still got that snorkel, it thinks. But this whole area, everyone's starting to dig in for a fight. When California wants to be a state, which shouldn't be for a long time, but when it wants to be a state, what's it going to be, right? It's not going to be for a long time, right here. 1846, 1847, 1848, everyone knows nobody lives in California, and the few people who do aren't American. So we're nowhere near California statehood. We're nowhere near New Mexico, Arizona statehood. But David Wilmot opens this can of worms, and now the South is saying, yeah, but when it does, it's going to be slave. It has to be, or we're really going to be ready for a fight. And the North is saying, no, 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 no. And again, the Missouri Compromise line here doesn't really help us. Some people are going to say, hey, just extend it. That makes sense. But you guys know California. You all got 100s on your map quizzes, right? So, the Missouri Compromise line would cut it in half. So what do you do there? It's not much of a help. That, unfortunately, not an option. But that's something we won't have to deal with for a while because California is nowhere near statehood. Second question for you, though. This is a complicated one, for me at least. How should a guy like David Wilmot be remembered, right? Is he a hero? He took a stand. He said slavery is wrong. It shouldn't expand. Let's make that a law. Does that make him a hero? Right? Because that's not popular necessarily. It's definitely going to make him get labeled as a traitor, as a troublemaker by Southerners. Is that what he is? Is he a troublemaker? Because he knows that this is going to rock the boat, right? He's not like back with the Talmadge Amendment. He's been around for a while. This isn't this isn't 1819 like in Missouri. And whoa, where did this sectionalism come from? We are in the middle of the era of good feelings. Right? He knows this is not the era of good feelings. Is he a troublemaker? Right? Does that diminish what he did? Now, for today, for us, right, where this extends to us, is do people have an obligation to act? Right? If you think something is wrong, do you have an obligation to act, even if you know in the short term, maybe in the long term, this is going to make things worse? Right? David Wilmot did not make the country a more stable place, a better place, especially in the short term. Maybe not. I mean, it took a long time. And I mean, if you want to say things got better eventually, it's not too after the Civil War. So 750,000 people dead. What kind of legacy does that leave him? And the last part here is, how do you think Wilmot and others like him should have acted during the Mexican-American War in regards to slavery and its likely expansion, right? Henry Clay, peaceful coexistence, peaceful union. Is that the right way to go, right? Even if you're compromising with slaveholders, right? A lot of people in the North, your William Lloyd Garrisons said, no, let's just break the country apart if it means being with slaveholders. Is that your model? You're Henry Clay? I know some of you like to talk about John C. Calhoun a lot. He's all about property rights and property in humans, right? Is that a better way, or is a way like David Wilmot, right, that more extreme to the left of the no, slavery is wrong, it's evil, it's immoral, therefore it should not expand? Where do you guys come on that kind of stuff? So go ahead and pause, put that down in your activity sheet, and we got 2 more issues, content slides to go through. 1 more question, we'll get out of here. All right, westward movement. Very simple here, first slide. So Polk has already come through with his promise to deliver all of Texas and California, right? He got that in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Got that check mark off. In 1846, though, he also got us Oregon. Now, in his campaigning, right, and even in 1846, by 1846, they were using slogans like 54-40 or fight. We're going to take all of Oregon. Oh, we coming for you, Britain. But in 1846, he agrees to a treaty with Britain that compromises and gives us the modern border that we have between the U.S. and Canada at a place called the 49th parallel. So instead of the 54th, he agrees to the 49th for the U.S.-Canada border. This avoids a third war with Britain. Britain's like, hey, we fought you twice. It hasn't gone well. We go, good. We only have to fight Mexico, not also Britain. I mean, that would have been bad. And so he gives us a lot of the Oregon country, right? The only thing that was any value on the other side of that border was Vancouver Island. So Polk, again, said, hey, I'm going to get you Oregon. He does that. I'm going to get you California. He does that. I'm going to get you all of Texas. I'm going to fulfill Manifest Destiny. He does it, right? Which is why he is the most successful one-term president we've ever had. It might not all be good in the way we did it. Might not be good in the long term. But he made promises, and he kept them. And then, and this is such terrible luck for Mexico. Right after, and I'm talking right after, Mexico agrees and signs the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. Right after, gold is discovered in Northern California, not too far outside of San Francisco, a place called Sutter's Mill. Gold is discovered, and this leads to the gold rush. Thousands are going to flock to California. The peak of that flock comes in 1849. They're going to Northern California outside of San Francisco, which is why the name of the San Francisco football team is the 49ers, because that's what they called these people who flocked to California in 1849. They were 49ers, which is where that mascot comes from. But Manifest Destiny is complete. California is now filled with white Americans, so I guess whenever I said California statehood isn't going to be an issue in the near term, that was wrong. Nobody thought it was going to be an issue, and then all of a sudden, there was gold on gold on gold. So that was a lie. But so we have here our first map, which I should have put up earlier, but here's our first map right here. Here's 5440. This is what we said we were going to go to war with the British over all of this as well. Would have been a crazy looking border. We already had a border at the 49th parallel, so we say, hey, why don't we just extend the 49th parallel? That's easy peasy lemon squeezy. So we go ahead, we do that. They keep all of Vancouver Island. We get all of this down here. And then, obviously, gold, right? Gold is discovered. A lot of this gold here, Sutter's Mill, right here, Sacramento, San Francisco is going to be the entry point for a lot of these people coming by ship. You got to remember, it's still shorter to go by ship, but you also got to remember to go by ship normally meant you had to go all the way around South America as well. If you tried to go through what is now Panama, you had to get off, walk, and getting boats to get into California was very difficult because the crew of most of the ships that were landing in San Francisco Harbor, they were abandoning ship. They were running into the gold fields here in the outside of Sacramento, and they weren't coming back. So hundreds of ships were going to San Francisco, and they were staying there because everyone was trying to get rich. There was a lot of gold found, although pretty much the only people who got rich were not the miners. They were the people supplying the miners with their pans for their panhandling, for their tents, for their food. for their jeans. Levi Strauss, a company founded and made a ton of money selling jeans to these people because they're spending so much time in streams, in rivers, in the mud, trying to find whatever gold they could. So, predict real quick. I kind of gave a little bit away, possibly. How will gold in California cause short-term and/or long-term issues for the United States? Right? We're finding a bunch of gold. That can't possibly lead to any problems. Here's a little what if. How would the U.S. be different if Henry Clay had won the presidency in 1844, not Polk? Right? What would have changed about all the stuff we've talked about, other than Clay's son probably being alive? What things would have been different? Do you think? Right? No wrong answers, although probably a lot of wrong answers. Who knows? Counterfactual. Go ahead, hit pause, put it down. We'll finish this bad boy up. Nope, we done. So, wrap up. Remember, last thing everyone has to do. Today, on level, you have a discussion thread. I have a question put up for you in the discussion thread. If you go down, scroll, if you click on my class and you click on materials and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you're going to see a discussion linked for today's class for lecture number 2. Go ahead and click on that. Do the discussion post that you need to do, or posts that you need to do. Honors, I have a document up for you inside the unit 6/Arctic Day folder labeled Manifest Destiny. I got a little research, got a little questions for you. Shouldn't be too bad, shouldn't take too long. Go ahead, do that, and you guys will be done for today. Go ahead, and once you've done this, submit to me through email, preferably, the activity sheet that you've done for lecture 1 and lecture 2. I don't care how you label it. You can label it activity sheet. You can label it activity sheet lecture. I don't care. Whatever you label it. Send it to me at one of my email addresses. I'll get that grade in there. And you'll be good there as well. So do the wrap up. Make sure we've done the questions from last class. Make sure you did the wrap up from last class. Do today's wrap up as well. Get me that activity sheet. Get me any old work that you have, and you'll be Gucci. So reminders, please, please, please do your work. I know we wish we were on vacation. I know we wish we could sit around and play the new Call of Duty Battle Royale all day. I know we wish we could sit around and do nothing except make fantastic TikToks and relax. We can't. I am online from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., like that's not an exaggeration, pretty much nonstop. If you need anything at all, need to submit work, resubmit work, ask a question, whatever, message me on Schoology, on my email. The third 9 weeks is ending soon, so please check your grades. If you don't have a grade, I don't have the work for you, or it fell through the cracks, just resubmit it, please. Don't forget about the tips and help discussion board, and check those updates very frequently on Schoology. All right? All right. Well, I am about done. If I can get this thing to quit. So stay safe, stay sane. You can shortly. It's been my pleasure to bring this to you. Deuces.